Welcome to the Pillar to Post Podcast, the official news and recap show of Worldwide Wrestling. Today, we discuss Episode 2 of Blackout from Tucson, Arizona. We talk about Dream Street Wrestling, and we talk about guaranteed money. Guys, be sure to stay tuned with us as we dive right into this one.
Never seen us coming when we come around. Never see us running from the other town. High flying in the sky, can you see me now? Headed to the top from the underground.
That is right, guys. Welcome to the Pillar to Post Podcast, Episode 4. Still holding strong. I am your host, as always, Dewey Danielson, and I am here today to bring you guys a fantastic show with special guest today, Clarence Fletcher Townsend, otherwise known as CFT. But guys, before we get to all of that, be sure to subscribe to 3Dub Wrestling on YouTube. Follow us on all of our social media accounts and like this video. Help 3Dub get where they are trying to go. Man, oh man, we have a good show here today for you guys, so let's dive right in. First and foremost, the weekly content that was getting released on the 3Dub social media networks and beyond. Since the last time we had a Pillar to Post podcast, now we got to see we got to hear two new theme songs, and ironically, they are the two new bonded couple, if you will, in 3Dub Wrestling, and that is, we heard the theme songs of CFT and Townsend Enterprise, that $1 billion drip. Be sure to let us know how you feel about that one in the comments. And then, of course, we heard a new, updated theme song for Chris Harris. You can hear in the background. Be sure to let us know what you think about that one. New theme songs coming out. Be on the lookout for next week's theme song reveal, which will be the Guaranteed Money theme song. So very excited to see all of that. More weekly content that was released a couple weeks ago. We seen promo of the week being from Twan Montana. And then this past week, we seen Jeroen Mercury receive the weekly promo highlight. Very, very cool. Be sure to go check those out on all social media platforms if you haven't checked them out already. Next thing I want to talk about here, guys, is the house show and Shockwave. So as everybody knows who has been following along with us so far here in Season 10, we have started a new kind of side project in 3Dub Wrestling, and that would include the house show, which we've seen one and only one episode thus far. But it was a fantastic show nonetheless. Be sure to check it out on YouTube under the live videos tab. But we had also mentioned the return of Shockwave. Now this is a much anticipated brand to return to 3Dub Wrestling. You never know what could happen on Shockwave. A lot of memorable moments in its short lifetime. And a lot of that thanks to Christoph E. Tomlinson, the owner of the Shockwave brand. Now recently, on the last episode of Pillar to Post, we mentioned there being a little bit of a legal issue with the branding of Shockwave, considering some of the big changes that have happened in 3Dub Wrestling. But we thought that was all cleared up and good to go. In fact, we did have an episode of Shockwave and a lot of great content on that show. But apparently, there is still some issues going on with 3Dub Wrestling and Shockwave, so I'm going to let management take care of that, and hopefully we get another episode of Shockwave in the near future. But we also know that Christoph E. Tomlinson, just having birth another child. So kind of good situation for him nonetheless. But best wishes to Chris. And hopefully we get a Shockwave episode. Like I said, in the near future, get all that legal stuff figured out. I'm sure it's not too deep as far as the legal stuff goes, because we still have the episode available for airing on YouTube and some other clips around social media. So just a little bit left to clear up, I guess. But nonetheless, the house shows for 3Dub Wrestling will continue. We will not have one this week, of course. Next week, we are doing Guaranteed Money. But the week following that, we will return with the house show. So it'll be a couple of weeks, but we have the clear for the next house show card. And I'm sure that will be released on social media in the coming days. So that's kind of the update with Shockwave and house shows in the near future. So stay tuned and see any more information that comes from that. Now it is time to go on and talk about the most recent episode of Blackout. Episode 2 from Tucson, Arizona in the Tucson Arena. Fantastic go-home show for the Guaranteed Money premium live event that is coming up. As always, I like to go over the numbers, and I'm not going to fudge these numbers. I'm going to be truthful, right? Not every episode is going to fare as well as the other, and it all has to do with timing and all of that and what's going on for that day. Now, this last episode, as everyone knows, had a little bit of production issues with, well, we'll just say the video game 2K25 not giving us some things that we were expecting to have and giving us all kinds of issues. I'm sure the entire 2K25 universe knows all about that, but nonetheless, set us back a couple of days. So this show, releasing on Tuesday as opposed to Sunday nights, a little bit off schedule, and maybe, just maybe, that's why the numbers are a little bit lower here for this show. But nonetheless, I'm not going to fudge. Like I said, we're going to tell you exactly what they are. At the moment of recording right now for the Pillar to Post podcast, 127 views and 15 likes for episode 2 of Blackout. As I mentioned, significantly lower numbers in both categories, but that's okay. Still a damn good show, and we did a lot of building for Guaranteed Money. Let's start things off. The first thing that happened was Mr. Azvito, the representative for the 3Dub World Heavyweight Championship, coming down with his flesh face, no mask. We're going to talk a little bit about that mask here. Apparently, Mr. Azvito undergoes some sort of psychological change when he puts this mask on to become the Hexen character. Some sort of transformation. I don't want to say magic, right? I don't want to say magic. You see a lot of magical type things in the wrestling world, in 3Dub. You've seen a lot of that kind of stuff with Juice James, you know. This is a little bit different. He's not pulling the wool over anybody's eyes, no pun intended. He is what he is, much, much more intensified when that mask goes on. That's how I can calculate this. But he shows up here in Tucson, no mask, strictly as Mr. Azvito. But of course, carrying the 3Dub World Heavyweight Championship. And he's talking about this open challenge that he issued on the first episode of Blackout, in which nobody answered. Although we know Sanders showed up late. Maybe Sanders might have answered the call. But he showed up late to the arena for whatever reason. But here we are. Azvito talking about the open challenge, talking about how it's still on. And we know behind the scenes, Sander Cool has traded his global championship, something that he created, something that he had to work for in order to get officially established here in 3W Wrestling through Matt 8th Star. He sells this title to Clarence Fletcher Townsend, CFT, in exchange for CFT trying to get him a match with Hexen at Guaranteed Money, knowing that CFT has no pool of power here anymore. He's not a general manager. But he does have connections. And he is still kind of close with the superstars. And he has his issues with Matt 8th Star and Hunter Deal. But on business terms, they could level out with each other. So apparently, things went the way that Sander Cool wanted them to go. He comes out here, interrupts Mr. Asvito, talks to this crowd about how every moment that he has created has been for the fans. And this moment in general is for the fans. And it's for the people to get back what they loved, which what he thinks they loved the most. What meant so much to the 3W universe was that takedown brand. And ultimately, Matt 8th Star, his job back. That is Sander Cool's goal. Win the 3W World Heavyweight Championship and somehow transform Blackout back to takedown. Now, the latter part, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure we're pretty set in our ways here with the Blackout brand, and nothing has been made official with Matt 8th Star as far as his positioning backstage, but he is still part of management. He is still a majority owner in this company. But apparently there was enough pull from CFT through Matt 8th Star to Hunter Deal. Because we've seen Matt and Hunter backstage, and Matt just telling Hunter that he needs to listen to the people. Because you could hear the people in Tucson going crazy for Sander Cool. That has been made official, guys. So he may not be able to bring back the takedown brand. He may not be able to get Matt 8th Star back in charge. Who knows? You'll have to find out, I guess, if he can win the title, but that is the case here. He could win the 3W World Heavyweight Championship for the second time in 3W. Very, very interesting stuff. Well, we moved on to our first matchup of the evening, which ended up being match of the night. And man, I have to tell you, a lot of excitement for me here, watching the Resistance in action and being able to call that matchup with Martrix and with Dargus in the ring together. Man, doing what they do best. And going up against the badass Brits, Daniel Roberts and Scott Adams. I want to say, nothing official, but I want to say that there's some sort of tension going on already between Roberts and Adams. The way that Roberts was acting after the matchup, after the Resistance had won the number one contendership. I guess we'll have to see what goes from there. But I know these two have come together to work as a tag team. So, not very much tag team history in both of their careers. A little bit here and there, but for the most part, singles competitors. So maybe there's just a couple of things that both of them need to iron out. But nevertheless, the winners of the matchup, match of the night, the Resistance, get number one contendership. And after the match, the champions come down to the ring and they show their respects for Martrix and Dargus. A big celebration in the ring as they cheer on what's going to be a fantastic matchup, guys. It's now announced as a ladder match. We'll talk a little bit more about it. But that is a big, big matchup for the Resistance. That has a lot of upside for them. But Team Tap Out, on the other hand, has been doing fantastic as of late. So, big matchup to open the card. As mentioned, match of the night. Resistance take the win and will go on to face Tap Out at Guaranteed Money. Awesome, awesome stuff. Now, speaking of Team Tap Out, there's a lot going on with Team Tap Out backstage. First and foremost, after this situation, we see TJ Renegade and Jacob Fowler, the two tag team champion representatives of Team Tap Out, talking with one another backstage. Fowler is excited about having to defend the titles at Guaranteed Money. Essentially their first title defense since winning the titles at the big event. So he's excited about that, but he can see something is going on with TJ Renegade. And now we all know what's going on with TJ Renegade. He wants to get his hands on Roscoe Wallace. Well, that is what he does do. We'll talk about that here in just a second, but he tells Fowler here that it is time for him to move on from the tag team titles, as maybe he thinks he's detrimental to the retainment of these titles, considering his focus has been elsewhere. And like a good partner that Jacob Fowler is, he understands what's going on. And he wants to be able to give TJ exactly what he wants. So what he says is, at this moment in time, Jaden Walker does not have any kind of match at Guaranteed Money. Now, we know that would go on to change, but at that moment, he didn't have a match. So Jacob tells TJ, it's no big deal. We got Jaden. Me and him will work together. We'll defend these titles. We'll bring them home. You go do what you need to do. What did he need to do? He needed to jump from the back of an ambulance and take out Roscoe Wallace in the parking lot as he was making his way to the arena that night. That is what happened a few segments later. TJ Renegade finally gets his hands on Roscoe Wallace, the XTV champion, and with that has already secured himself a match for the title against Roscoe at Guaranteed Money. But that's not all that happened with Team Tap Out backstage. Jaden Walker would not be very happy with his situation at Guaranteed Money, although he could step in and defend with Jacob the tag team titles at Guaranteed Money against the Resistance. Jaden Walker felt like he deserved more, and I think the fans also believe that he deserves more, and I believe that he deserves more. And that is exactly what he thought when he came to Hunter Deal backstage, and he knew that Roscoe had been taken out by TJ, but in the same breath asks if he could be the fill-in. Because you have to have this Guaranteed Money match. This Guaranteed Money qualifying match. Joe Rivers is supposed to take on Roscoe, but this attack has taken Roscoe out of the picture, and now Joe is looking for an opponent, and Jaden thinks it should be him. I thought it should be him. He pled his case because Hunter wasn't feeling it at first. He kind of, thought, hey, TJ just attacked Roscoe. Now you want the spot? Well, that's a little bit of coincidence. But he pleaded his case. And even before he pleaded his case, I felt that was nothing to do with this. TJ has been wanting his hands on Roscoe for quite some time now. So Jaden pleads his opportunity, and eventually Hunter Deal caves and agrees to let Jaden Walker take on Joe Rivers. Guaranteed Money qualifying match. in which we jump right into it. I know we're skipping around on the show here a little bit, but we go right into the matchup. Hard-fought matchup, but you kind of anticipated this as well. Noah Youngblood makes his appearance in the matchup, attacking Joe Rivers. Right after Joe Rivers had the match won, he had just landed a second curb stomp. And instead of going for the pinfall, he reaches for a microphone, addresses the crowd, talking about how if this is the man that the crowd wants to win guaranteed money, then they're all dumb. And he goes on to talk about how he's going to prove Remy Resner and Noah Youngblood are wrong, and management and everybody else in the crowd. And he's going to win guaranteed money. And he goes on to talk about this, only to be attacked by Noah Youngblood with a kendo stick. Noah causes the disqualification, and as we've seen already a couple of weeks ago when Chris Conley was on the butt end of a disqualification, Conley got to advance. Same situation here, and you feel maybe Noah did this on purpose because he wanted Joe in the match, in the guaranteed money ladder match. But anyway, however you slice it, Noah Youngblood causes the disqualification. Jaden Walker is back out of a matchup at guaranteed money. You go on to tag, right? We'll talk a little bit more about Noah and Joe here in just a minute. We're going to continue the talks about Team Tap Out, because now we get a situation where Will King gets an opportunity once again for the national championship. And again, another thing we'll talk about here in just a moment. But now that leaves Jacob Fowler without a partner. Unless Jaden Walker or TJ Renegade want to do double time. Because now at Guaranteed Money, totally different from the beginning of this show. Now at Guaranteed Money, TJ Renegade is going to face Roscoe Wallace for the Extreme Television title. And now Jaden Walker is going to defend the national championship against Will King. Well, neither of them are going to have to double time, because later in the show we seen Drew Tanner, the Portsmouth Punisher, catching up with Jacob Fowler backstage, and he was telling him how he was appreciative of Team Tap Out inviting him to the dojo to train. And even though it didn't get him a win this night against Will King, we'll talk about, he has gotten his focus a little bit better. And his appreciation for this, because Tanner is an ex-member of Team Tap Out. At one point. Long ago, but at one point. And now being invited back to the dojo, getting his mind right. Plenty of mindfulness. You know, he wants to pay his respects. And how he's going to do that is offer his assistance in the 3-Dub Tag Team title match and to become part of Team Tap Out once again. And not only that, he wants to train Jacob Fowler and help him become the best version of himself. I think this is fantastic. This is perfect for Team Tap Out. Jaden Walker needs to focus on his national title. TJ Renegade is a little bit too much of a loose cannon to be tied down in tag teams. And I think the veteranness of Drew Tanner mixed with the willingness and ambition that Jacob Fowler has, I think it's going to be a fantastic tag team for the factions. So that is what happens, guys. A lot for Team Tap Out through the night. Now let's rewind a second here. Let's rewind back to the Will King and and Drew Tanner matchup. This is kind of where everything boiled over for Will King. Because for the past couple of episodes, for weeks now, CFT has been under his recruiting reign. We all know he already had Caleb Stone. That was a given. And shockingly to the world, he recruited Chris Harris on the last episode of Blackout. And now on this episode, after weeks of recruitment, Will King opts to join Townsend Enterprise. Well. CFT is gathering himself a little posse here. I think the big question that comes with Will King is if the Monarchy come with him as a package deal. I'd assume that they do. I mean, we did hear CFT kind of telling Will King that they were bringing him down. And now that's the only reason why I question, is this a package deal kind of thing? But I'd imagine they would, because, I mean, look at the people that are now in Townsend Enterprises. Caleb Stone, Chris Harris, Will King, 3 seasoned veterans, multi-time, all former world champions. Great opportunity for somebody like Roscoe and MDX, who just won, most improved superstar. Great opportunity for them to grow. It's the package deal with the Monarchy in Townsend Enterprises. Well, I have to find out, guys, but now we've got a big faction from Townsend. Let's rewind a little bit more. We talked about Noah Youngblood getting involved in the matchup with Joe Rivers and Jaden Walker, ultimately causing the DQ, yada yada. Well, earlier in the night, Noah Youngblood gets a one-on-one matchup with Twan Montana, 2 superstars who were already qualified for the Guaranteed Money ladder match at G-Money next weekend. 2 superstars who were in the final moments, the last 2 superstars who had their fingers on the briefcase in last year's Guaranteed Money match. One-on-one. Big opportunity for both of these individuals to get a little momentum going into G-Money and put to rest a little lingering rivalry that has been going between the two. We've heard Twan talk about that. Putting all of his nails in the coffins of his past. Moving on forward and looking forward to Guaranteed Money. Well, the momentum sway goes to Twan Montana, who gets the victory here. And out of respect, just out of respect. You never know what you're going to get from Twan, but right here, out of respect, he goes to give the handshake to Noah. Well done. Nice try. I'll see you at G-Money. In which it was rejected. Noah slapped his fist out of the way. Not taking any handshake. Very, very frustrated, Noah Youngblood. Ever since losing that 3-dub title. And I mean, I would be too. I don't know if I'd be wanting to shake anybody's hand. I'd have one thing on my mind, and that's Guaranteed Money. And maybe that's why he lost in this matchup. We've seen the slight distraction from Joe Rivers, playing his music, catching Noah's attention. Joe never came down to the ring. So it wasn't really a full-on distraction. Twan didn't capitalize on that very moment. Was the weight of Guaranteed Money and the thought of getting it back, trying to be the first 2-time Guaranteed Money briefcase holder, was the thought and weight of that thought too much for Noah? Is it going to be for him at Guaranteed Money next weekend? We'll find out. Now, a lot more is taking place on this show. As we move right on into the women's division, we'll talk about both of the segments that happened here for the women's division. And firstly, we'll start with Nightshade's appearance, where I was able to go down to the ring for a very, very rare occasion. You see me inside that ring. But I was happy to go in there with Nightshade and be the one to ask her the question of who she was going to choose to defend the title against at Guaranteed Money. Would it be Jocelyn Havoc or would it be Gypsy Freak? Well, the decision was clear. She doesn't want to leave any stone unturned. She wants to be able to go into this matchup and do everything she can to put Jocelyn and Gypsy behind her. And that is why she has opted for a triple threat match. A triple threat match for the Women's Undisputed Championship between Gypsy Freak, Jocelyn Havoc, and Nightshade. That's not all, ladies and gentlemen. It has been brought to my attention that this matchup is going to be a Hell's Prison match. And if you are not familiar with Hell's Prison, we will get to that when we talk about Guaranteed Money. But next, we had ourselves a little hostage situation. The former women's television champion, Danny Moore, who has been poking her nose around trying to get herself back in contention for that title. You know, she's due a rematch. We'll talk about that here in just a second. But Cruella, the Mistress of Darkness, would hold Danny hostage backstage on the catwalk, threatening to throw her off in what would be, I don't even know what that would be, 20, 30 feet to the concrete, if Maria James did not give her a title match at Guaranteed Money. Now, Maria was reluctant, and she didn't hesitate. You want a title match? Fine, you got a title match. Let's do it. Just put Danny down. None of that is called for. She has nothing to do with this. So that is what she does. She lets Danny go. She runs off. Maria chases her. And it's official. TV title match, Maria versus Cruella. Now, next, we're going to talk about a big situation that took place with Dylan Mason. Dylan Mason would come down to the ring representing that international championship, and he would address what he calls, now these are his words, not mine, the three idiots. And that would be Los Salvadores, Justin Peralt, Jeroen Mercury, and Jimmy Shadow. Would address them, tell them that they are beneath him, they have no edge over Dylan Mason. Even with a dirty attack on the first episode of Blackout where they returned to 3-Dub Wrestling as Los Salvadores and took out Dylan and Chris. And then Mason goes on to talk about Chris Conley and how, since Mason isn't in the matchup, I'm guessing, Mason's pick, I guess, is going to be Chris Conley because he assumes that Conley's going to win the briefcase. And when he does, he's not going to have to look very far because Dylan Mason is going to be right there. And when he cashes in that briefcase and Dylan claims that he will cash in and he will win the title and he won't have to look far because Dylan Mason is going to be right there. Didn't take long for Chris Conley. His music hits, he comes down to the ring, and he is face to face with Dylan Mason one more time, letting Dylan know that he might be going on to the Guaranteed Money briefcase ladder match, but he hasn't forgotten Dylan Mason. He hasn't forgotten that even though it's by disqualification, he has a victory over the international champion. Well, it also wouldn't take long for the three idiots, Los Salvadores, to come down. They come marching down to the ring, and they tell Chris Conley that you need to pick a side. Or you need to get out of the way. Because their targets were not on Conley. Conley just so happened to be collateral damage. Their issues were with Dylan Mason. And at that moment, Chris Conley made a decision. He made a decision to send another message to Dylan Mason that this is not over and that when I want, I can be out on top. And from behind, he hits Dylan Mason with a pop-up powerbomb cutter. And then leaves the ring. And essentially leaves Dylan Mason for Los Salvadores to come in and pick from the remains. But we're talking about the longest reigning heavyweight champion in 3-dub history. We're talking about one of the best guys. We're talking about one of the absolute best. And just as Los Salvadores come entering in the ring one by one, first with Justin Perrault, Blood Eagle. And then with Jeroen Mercury, Blood Eagle. And then with Jimmy Shadow, who had to pump the brakes before entering the ring. Blew a little kiss to Dylan Mason and says he'll see you later. But just wanted Dylan to know that there's more. Indeed, there is. And that is how Jimmy Shadow is going to get an international title match with Dylan Mason at Guaranteed Money. And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, the main event of Blackout 2, Tucson, Arizona. Chris Harris and John Awesome. A match that has really been brewing since the big event 9 main event. They have sat down and talked about it. They have attacked each other from every different angle. It is finally time for them to get inside the ring and settle this. And what not make it better by adding Guaranteed Money qualifying into the mix. And this match delivered on every aspect except for the finish. And I'll tell you that why here in just a second. But man, we started this match out hot, guys. The ref goes down. They spill outside. Chris throws a sledgehammer in the face of John Awesome. A little bit later in the matchup, Chris attempts to leave for whatever reason. CFT comes down. All hell starts breaking loose. And the ref counts to 10. Our final qualifying match for Guaranteed Money, and the referee counts to 10. A double count out, as the tensions between these two won't allow them to focus enough to beat a 10 count. And that is where we were left, guys, with Blackout. 5 superstars enter Guaranteed Money. A 6th mystery superstar will fill the void. We don't know who it's going to be or where they're going to come from for that matter, but we do know, and this is straight from James Black, the president, that neither John Awesome nor Chris Harris will enter that matchup. If they can't keep their heads on long enough to finish one singles matchup, then they don't deserve to be in Guaranteed Money briefcase ladder match. Instead, they're going to try it again. And we'll talk about that coming up next, guys. But before we do that, I want to talk about who our next guest is going to be on the 5th episode of the Pillar to Post podcast, and that is the general manager himself, Hunter Deal. Now, this will be after Guaranteed Money, so it'll be good to get some insights from the general manager, from the fallout of G Money, and anything else that may be circling around. Hunter Deal, our next guest. Guys, now let's move on to talk about Guaranteed Money. What a big show we have planned for you guys. It will be in Phoenix, Arizona. And this is where Chris Harris and John Awesome will go at it one more time. But this time, throw all the rules out the window. And that is how I think it should be. No disqualification. John and Chris Harris, Guaranteed Money. Some of the other matches we already know about. The Resistance getting a tag team title opportunity against Team Tap Out, representatives of Jacob Fowler and Drew Tanner. We'll also get Cruella and Danny Moore and Maria James in a women's television title match, triple threat. And another triple threat matchup for the women's division, this one in Hell's Prison. Jocelyn Havoc, Gypsy Freak, and the champion defends Nightshade. Now, if you don't know what Hell's Prison is, it's a match made famous by the Madness, Jack Harvey, which is a steel cage match, but a little bit differently. This steel cage is pumped with piping hot steam, enough to cause second or third degree burns just to the touch. And that is what Hell's Prison is. There is no escaping in this cage match. Pinfall or submission will win for the undisputed title. Jaden Walker, for the third time, will be defending the national championship against Will King. This time, Will King has Clarence Fletcher Townsend in his corner. Will he also have the Monarchy in his corner? This could be the opportunity for Jaden Walker to lose the title to Will King. His third time a charm. We'll find out. Also, the international title match where Dylan Mason will defend against Jimmy Shadow. And you have to imagine that the remaining members of Los Salvadores, Jeroen Mercury and Justin Peralta, will have a hand in this matchup. I could put my paycheck on that one. And then, of course, the Guaranteed Money ladder match briefcase matchup. 6 men will enter, although only 5 have been announced. And that is Warren Peace, Noah Youngblood, Joe Rivers, Twan Montana, and Chris Conley. Who will be the 6th man in that matchup? You have to tune in to Guaranteed Money in order to find out. Well, guys, I am excited about Guaranteed Money. I am going to go through and give predictions as to who I think will win at the event next weekend. I'm going to start off with the Guaranteed Money ladder match. I think it's Twan Montana's year. It's his opportunity to be had. He was just inches away from winning it last season, and that could have changed the whole course of his season on Takedown. But he didn't win it. And he's been fighting obstacles to get to where he is, and I think this is the year for Twan Montana. Who do you think will win Guaranteed Money? I am also going to pick Dylan Mason to retain the International Championship. And here's why. We just seen 2 Blood Eagles on Blackout. Chris Conley's involved with something else. He's got his focus elsewhere for the night. And yeah, Los Salvadores is at ringside. But I mean, we're talking about Dylan Mason. He overcomes here. He retains the title. I think Will King will take the national championship. Yes, I said it. Unable to do so in his first two opportunities against Jaden, but I think this will be the one, especially if he has both members of the Monarchy and CFT in his corner. I think it's written. It's already wrote. Will King will win the national championship. I think my bets are on Gypsy Freak to win the women's undisputed title inside Hell's Prison. Why do I think that? Because I think Jocelyn Havoc is probably the biggest threat. To the title, that is. I think Jocelyn is the biggest threat. And I think that Nightshade will probably pay more attention to her because she knows what to expect from Gypsy. So I think Nightshade is going to have more focus on Jocelyn Havoc. And with that said, in this environment, I think that it would be very easy for a third leg to take advantage in a situation with potential second or third degree burns from this steel cage surrounding the ring. Anything could happen. I think that Gypsy Freak is going to be the one to seize opportunity and win the undisputed women's title. Staying in the women's division, I think Cruella is going to take that women's TV title. I really do. She's got some sort of edge on her right now. She is on another level. Almost like we haven't seen from her yet in all of her years already here in 3Dub. This matchup is an elimination style matchup. So I think this one comes down to endurance. And I think of the three, considering that Maria, even though she is the champion, and Danny Moore was the champion, I think the endurance goes to the veteran. I think Cruella has the edge in this one and will take the TV title. Let's stay on the TV title. Let's go to the Extreme television title. I think Renegade is too much of a loose cannon sometimes. And I think he's been anticipating this matchup so much that it might be too much. And even though it's the Extreme rules and you're not going to have ropes and you're going to have spectators ringside and all kinds of distractions and weapon usage and falls count anywhere, I think that TJ may overthink this. And instead of just calming it down and taking it down a couple notches, I don't think he's going to be able to focus enough. Roscoe retains the title. That's my prediction. Moving on to the tag team titles. You know, Team Tap Out has been fantastic. Between Jaden Walker and Nightshade and Renegade and Fowler, ever since the split of the old Team Tap Out and the wiping of Team Tap Out Primal off the mat, man, Team Tap Out Control has been amazing. And even though I don't think Jaden wins the title here at Guaranteed Money, I mean, he could if Tap Out is also at ringside, but they've got a lot going on. They've already got a lot going on that night. But I think with the addition of Drew Tanner, I think he's going to be the wild card here. The addition of Drew Tanner, I think that's going to be the edge for him. It's another veteran, you know, very, very well-minded superstar Drew Tanner is. And I think that the Resistance, although them being as good as they are, Is it safe to say that maybe this isn't their time? It's been a fantastic nostalgia moment, winning the number one contendership, winning match of the night. But how far does that go? So I think we're going to see Team Tap Out retain the titles at Guaranteed Money. 2 more. We'll start with this one. I think between John Awesome and Chris Harris, I think everything's on the line. I think you also got Townsend Enterprises to worry about. Essentially, John has nobody on his side. Potentially anybody who has issues with Townsend Enterprise at the moment. But he's kind of riding solo dolo. Will it be enough for John Awesome? Will he have enough? No disqualification, guys. You know what that means. Will John Awesome have enough? Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. And I'm going against my best judgment, but I'm picking who I think will emerge the winner, and that is going to be Chris Harris. I hate saying it. I hate saying it. And that means a lot coming from somebody like me, who was the number one fanboy of Chris Harris. I don't know, man. I just don't think it's enough. I think John Awesome needs a miracle here. He can bring as much aggression and all that he wants, but I just think it's too much. It's going to be too much for him. It's not just going to be too much for him. As I pick Chris Harris to go over here, we got one more match to talk about, and that's the 3-Dub World Heavyweight Championship match, where Sander Cool gets another opportunity at the title against the undefeated monster Hexen. I don't think it's enough. The ultimate opportunist could have all of his ultimate opportunities mixed into one, and he will need at least 5 more opportunities to overcome Hexen. That is my prediction. I think there is no chance in hell. And it's another one that I hate to say because I love Sander Cool. I think he is a phenomenal competitor. I really do. Contrary to what many of the superstars in the locker room, at least, may think of him, contrary to what some of the fans and viewers may think of him, I think Sander Cool is amazing. He has already shown that he can win a heavyweight championship in 3-Dub. He's done it before. Can he do it again is the question. And like I said, it's almost like he has to do it 2 or 3 times at the same time because of who he's facing. Hexen undoubtedly continues the undefeated streak. My prediction. And I'm sorry, Sander. Well, those are my predictions. That is the recap of Blackout. That is the preview of Guaranteed Money. Now there's only one thing left to do. The exclusive interview with Clarence Fletcher Townsend. CFT, how are you doing, man? I'm glad to have you here. I've got a question for you that I want to start off right away. Back to your roots. You started out in 3-Dub here at TB6 as a manager. You would go on to have a match with Sander Cool. By season 7, you would become the general manager, in which you would purchase the contract from Chris Harris. Now, with our opening question, with those being some of the biggest years in 3-Dub history, under your management as general manager, tell me what those years meant to you.
First and foremost, Dewey, where in the hell are your manners?
What are you talking about?
You introduce me, you don't even thank me for coming on the podcast.
Oh, come on.
But I'm a gentleman.
Come on.
I'm a distinguished gentleman. So I'll thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah.
Now, you asked me about my roots. You're right. I came here in season 6 at TV6 to fight against Sander Cool as a manager. From there, I didn't do a whole lot of anything. Had some times with Caleb Stone, but other than that, I didn't really do a whole lot of anything. Also, Austin Eric. But after a while, I decided to leave. As you can tell, I'm a man of a million trades. I have several different endeavors, and well, you've actually given me the due diligence and shouted out a few of the things I've done, so props to you for that. But I came back season 7 to be the general manager of 3W, right? And I'll tell you why. I was given an opportunity to go in and fix all of the mistakes made by 3W management. At the time, I wrongfully blamed Chris Harris, but looking back at it now and having been within the system, I can tell you the problem with 3W before I became the general manager was not him at all. It was Mr. Drew, your brother, and the board of directors making stupid, boneheaded decisions. So what did I do? I took advantage of the board's stupidity and I bought them out. That's all I had to do. I went and I paid a ridiculous amount of money to the 3W board of directors to become the GM. And well, you asked what all those years mean to me. They meant a lot at the time, but I can tell you, they mean nothing compared to what's to come.
Yeah, but at that point in time in your career, did you ever think that you would come back to managing or bringing back Townsend Enterprises to Worldwide Wrestling?
You're going to the clickbait questions now, huh? You wanted to get something for the dirt sheets to write up, talk about me and my personal life, my thoughts, my feelings about different things? Fine, I'll give it to you. You know, at that point when I was general manager at Takedown, no. I never thought that I would ever reform Townsend Enterprises. I never thought that I would ever manage again because I thought for as long as I was general manager that I would have that position as GM for as long as I wanted it. Then you know what happened? Your brother and the 3W board of directors decided to go against my back. Though we were getting ratings unlike the company had ever seen before, Mr. Drew and the 3W board of directors went and appointed Matt 8-Star to be their stooge, not commissioner, that's not what I'm calling him, their stooge, and then he went to run Takedown into the ground, and I was left with nothing to do. And well, during that time, I had a lot of things I was doing. I was talking about the previous endeavors. I went back to that, but you know, I started to miss 3W. I ain't gonna lie. I started to miss all the things I was doing here. So I decided I was going to have one last run with Townsend Enterprises. And as you can tell, it's working out just great.
That it seems to be working out pretty good. And that kind of leads me to my next question. Hard-hitting question here. I think a lot of people may want to know the answer to this one. We know your former alliances with guys like Austin Eric, who's a Hall of Famer, and Caleb Stone, of course, who's a Hall of Famer, but why Will King? Why Chris Harris?
You know, I think the better question there, Dewey, is why not? You got Chris Harris, you got Will King, two of the best that 3W has to offer. I told everybody who listened before, Chris Harris, a multiple-time world champion. He's main evented the big event 3 times, and he's had some of the best matches that this company has ever had. Chris Harris is an often overlooked individual for a man of his repertoire and a man of his resume. And here's why I say that. Look no further than what happened to TB9. Chris Harris did the right thing and put Takedown in the ground. And what did James Black do? Instead of thanking Chris Harris for it, he said he had nothing to do with it. James Black had an opportunity to form an empire with this man. He had an opportunity to make millions and millions of dollars with him. He had opportunities to bring the ratings in. And where he saw nothing, I saw a legend. And that is exactly why Chris Harris is on my side. I've said it to everybody who will listen, and Dewey, I'm surprised you don't agree with me on this because, well, you were his biggest fanboy for the longest time. Chris Harris is the greatest of all time here in 3W, Mr. Big Event, the single greatest individual to ever live. And as for Will King, as I've said, #1 draft pick, multiple-time champion, Will King is one of the most underappreciated talents in this company. Will King has never really been given any significant opportunities. Very rarely has he even had an opportunity at the world title when Will King has been here for over half a decade, busting his ass and proving why he belongs here in 3-Dub, and people like your brother, Matt H-Star, and Blaze Management would not give him what was due to him. But as his agent and as his advisor, I promise you, Will King will get exactly what it is that he's looking for, and that begins at guaranteed money. Yes, that's right, Jaden Walker may have tapped out Will King twice, but let me tell you something. If it came down to just pinfalls, nobody can keep the entity down for the 1, 2, 3, and that includes Mr. Jaden Walker. Couple fluke wins don't mean anything. But that, long story short, is why I recruited them.
Is there anybody else on the roster who you have your eye on and maybe potentially could be recruiting? Are you still recruiting?
Are you serious? That's just a clickbait question right there. Anybody I'm eyeballing? Why would I tell you that? So you can go on your Facebook, your Instagram, your TikTok, and put the reels up of me saying exactly who it is I'm looking for so you can make money off of me? Not happening, Dewey Decimal System. But I will say there are some people, and I'm still recruiting.
Well, someone who you could potentially have your eye on, I guess, the current 3-Dub World Heavyweight Champion Hexen, but he's not necessarily who I want to ask you about. I want to ask you about Sander Cool. Do you think he has a chance against the undefeated Hexen? I know you've had some scuffles with Sander Cool in the past, and we know that you somehow had influence in this decision. But do you think Sander Cool has what it takes to beat Hexen?
Well, I did get this beautiful global championship belt out of it. But you want to know my thoughts about Hexen and Sander Cool? I'll say this. Sander is in over his head. I have no problem in saying that at all. Sander Cool is going up against a man twice his size with twice his strength, all to fight for a lost cause. That's what I think of that. Next question.
Yeah, you did get the global championship out of it, and I do want to ask you about that. But before we do, I want you to send a message to the superstars backstage, the ones that want to join Townsend Enterprise, and then also to the superstars and viewers, for that matter, who oppose Townsend Enterprises.
Well, for anybody who wants to join Townsend Enterprises, you'll have to prove to me and prove to everybody in my ranks that you are one of the absolute best that this company has to offer. I do not settle for mediocre, and I do not settle for average. Heck, I don't even settle for great. I only settle for perfect. So if you do not meet my criteria, and believe me, it's pretty strict, you're not getting in. And for those who oppose Townsend Enterprises, I have 2 words for you. Screw you. Because guess what? No matter what you say, no matter what you do, and no matter what you think, at the end of the day, Townsend Enterprises will still rise to the top because it's inevitable. There are 3 things that are inevitable in this world. Death, taxes, and CFT always get in his way.
Well, I don't know if there's any truth to that, but you do have the global title, and I did want to talk about how you acquired this global.
You know what? I've had enough of this interview. You are terrible at your job. You're one of the worst reporters that I have ever had the displeasure of sitting down with.
Excuse me?
So you know what? I'm going to take over the show.
What are you
Boys,
talking about?
cut his mic. Cut it now. Now, this is my show, CFT, and you've been listening to the Pillar to Post podcast. Good night, peasants.
Never